Tonight we are stepping quietly into a city wrapped in both moonlight and myth, Ancient Alexandria. It's just past midnight. The wind off the Mediterranean is thick with salt and lantern smoke. And somewhere down an alley, a bronze bell chimes the last moment of silence before the world begins again. The shutters are still closed, but behind them, whispers stir. A cat's cry echoes against a limestone wall. You stand still, a soft blow from your tea lamp warming your fingers, even as the coolness of the stone street beneath your sandals reminds you you're not home. You're not even close. You are in a world that was never meant to wait for you. And whether you're ready or not, it's already moving. You may never know the end of this story, but that's okay. This is your place to rest. If you like this space and want to see me again on future nights, please like and follow. We have many more nights to tell stories together. Let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. It's always comforting to know which corners of the world we drift into dreamland from together. Now take a deep breath, settle into the silence, and let your imagination open like a door to another time. You arrive just before sunrise, stepping softly into the twilight silence of Alexandria's oldest quarter. The air is cool but already whispering of heat to come. You shuffle down a narrow street, stone underfoot, the occasional splash of night water thrown from a window above. Someone's rooster is confused. It crows too early, or maybe too late, and from inside the domed bathhouse to your right, steam snakes from a vent carved like a lion's mouth. Alexandria doesn't sleep, it simmers. A flickering oil lamp swings on a frayed rope above a temple door, casting its light across the words of Ptolemy, etched so finely into the wall you'd need a philosopher's patience just to read it. But you don't have time for that. You're already being watched. A pair of boys, no older than 10, follow your steps with suspicious eyes and orange-stained fingers. Tamarind candy, probably. You quicken your pace, gently, politely, but it doesn't help. You're not dressed wrong, exactly. You made an effort, robes stitched to look Alexandrian, a sash from the market, sandals you paid too much for. But something's off, the way you walk, maybe, or the way you glance up at buildings instead of avoiding the loose tile that might fall from a balcony 3 stories above. The first lesson of Alexandria is silence. Not your silence, but its own. The quiet here isn't peaceful. It's calculating. Alexandria listens, measures. As you pass under a faded fresco of Isis, your foot lands on something soft and squishy. You don't want to know what it is. You just keep walking. Ahead, the avenue of Canopic stretches like a spine toward the center of the city. It should be empty, but it's not. Temple acolytes march in ritual. A group of Syrian traders unload their carts under torchlight. A philosopher argues with a baker about the metaphysics of dough. You stop. You watch, and then you realize you're in the way. The merchant grabs your arm, thinks you're a porter, shoves a jar of pickled onions into your hands and barks something in rapid Coptic Greek hybrid. When you don't move fast enough, he curses, snatches it back, and storms off. You mutter a weak apology, but your voice dissolves into the sound of a passing wagon wheel crunching something that might have been ceramic or bone. This isn't the Alexandria of museum dreams and tidy dioramas. This is a city with cracked fingernails and stories stuffed into every alley. You hear snoring from a rooftop and footsteps from a stairwell behind you. Someone's cooking fish over coals. The smell's smoky and sweet and, frankly, way too early in the morning for your modern stomach. You sneeze. A cat hisses from a ledge. Welcome to Alexandria. The streets narrow as you reach the district where night scribes gather. You glance into a candlelit doorway and catch sight of a young woman bent over a scroll, scribbling in Demotic so fast her hand is a blur. Her ink pot balances on a turtle shell. The man beside her, barefoot, bald, scowling, snaps a warning at you before you can even blink. Scroll's cursed. He growls, then winks. You don't know if he's joking. You don't want to find out. Further down the street, the tiles underfoot shift to polished granite, and the smell of sea brine fades into the scent of cedar oil and crushed lavender. You're nearing a temple, maybe two. Statues loom like guardians, lions with eyes of obsidian, gods whose names you don't know but whose presence makes your bones want to bow. You keep your head low. You don't breathe too loud. Still, a passing priest eyes you. It's not suspicion, it's curiosity laced with a warning. Don't ask questions your soul isn't ready to carry. And just when you think you've finally blended in, a man wrapped in gold-dyed linen bumps into you. You apologize. He doesn't respond. Instead, he hands you a tiny scroll, sealed with wax, and disappears into the early fog. You stare at it. Is this normal? You look around, but no one seems to notice or care. You unseal it. The wax cracks like brittle sugar. Inside, one word. Run. A bell tolls from the city center. Not for prayer, not for celebration. You look up. A shadow moves on the rooftop. Another slips behind a column. The city that was quietly judging you is now very much awake. And you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. You take a step back. Then another. Your sandal catches on a crack and you stumble. The scroll falls. A cat runs over it. From behind you, a voice, calm, male, very close, says, I wouldn't be here if I were you. You turn, heart hammering. No one is there. Only a flickering lamp. A street that's suddenly very empty. And Alexandria, stretching its long fingers through the mist, ready to pull you deeper. You try to walk faster, maybe even run, but no one sprints in Alexandria without reason. And you'll quickly learn that moving too quickly is just as suspicious as loitering. So instead, you stride with faux purpose toward the harbor, hoping that a body of water might be more forgiving than a shadowy temple alley. It isn't. The moment you step onto the wooden slats lining the great harbor, the air shifts. It's heavier here, saturated with the thick perfume of salt, sun-baked fish scales, and the breath of sailors who haven't bathed in seasons. The scent hits you like a slap from Poseidon himself. You cough, reflexively turning your face from a man gutting something long, silver, and possibly still alive. He winks with one eye and spits into the sea. The harbor doesn't welcome you. It swallows you whole. This isn't some scenic postcard view. It's chaos incarnate. Ships of every size press against one another like drunks at a festival. Egyptian reed boats creak beside Roman merchant ships, and a Phoenician vessel, painted entirely in indigo, seems to be arguing with the tide. You narrowly miss being clipped by a swinging anchor, only to be bumped, twice, by a fishmonger balancing a tray of eels on his shoulder. You mutter apologies in 3 languages, none of which land, A man with a braided beard growls something that might have been Aramaic or just indigestion. A child sells candied lotus roots while shouting the latest rumors about a sea monster living beneath the lighthouse. Someone shouts, "Fire," but no one runs. So you don't either. Remember that scroll from earlier? It's now lost, or perhaps stolen. Either way, it no longer matters. What matters is that your robes are beginning to absorb the harbor smell like cursed linen. And your sandals have picked up enough harbor muck to start a small ecological disaster back in your time. A pelican, yes, a pelican, lands beside you and steals the last of your dried dates. No one bats an eye. You make your way closer to the dock's edge, trying to glimpse the famed lighthouse of Pharos, which shimmers in the haze like a god trying to hide behind fog. It is immense, even from here, a colossus of fire and polished stone. But this moment of awe is ruined by the sharp sting of a trident's wooden end poking your thigh. A dock official, skin like oiled leather and voice like crushed gravel, demands to see your permit. When you stammer, he narrows his eyes. No badge, no presents. He says, "This harbor is for citizens, scholars, and those who pay proper homage to the tides." You nod, say something about being a visiting librarian, which earns only a grunt and a dismissive wave. Then stay out of the fish lanes, unless you want to end up salted. You turn down a smaller walkway, desperate for quiet, and instead find the scum line. This is where the boats that no longer float come to die. A dozen broken vessels rest like ancient sea skeletons, sun-bleached and bird-stripped, but some of them still move because they house families. Children peek from beneath torn sails. An old man plays a reed flute with 3 fingers missing, his song lilting and oddly soothing. A woman hangs herbs from a mast that hasn't seen wind in years. You think you found peace. Then the wind shifts. From behind a pile of amphorae, a sailor relieves himself directly into the water. A second follows. The water, as it turns out, is not to be trusted. You edge away, your romantic notion of the Mediterranean now forever haunted by the phrase, "warm and yellow." You try to sit. A fisherman yells at you for blocking the sun from his bait bowl. You move. A seagull drops something unholy onto your shoulder. You freeze. Somewhere behind you, laughter erupts, coarse, mocking, entirely deserved. And still, you remain, because for all its smell, chaos, and borderline violence, the harbor is alive, vivid, terrible, magnetic. Every accent in the known world drifts on the air. You hear debates about spices, accusations of theft, offers of marriage, and threats of exile, all within the space of 30 seconds. You watch a man paint symbols on the prow of a ship using crushed beetles and whispers. You see a woman with tattooed eyes hand a clay bottle to a Roman soldier who immediately drops it. Watching it shatter into blue smoke. "Don't breathe that," someone says. You breathe it anyway. It smells like cinnamon and fear. You take a step back. Dizzy. You need air. Clean air. Temple air. But to get there, you have to cross back through a knot of linen traders who are currently arguing over thread count using sharp sticks and loud insults. You duck, dodge, and swear, quietly, to never again romanticize ancient harbors in bedtime podcasts. As you finally step back onto stone and away from the wooden docks, you notice your coin pouch is lighter, considerably lighter. You check. Yep, gone. You also now have a small tattoo of a fish on your forearm. When did that happen, and what does it mean? You hear the flapping of sails above you, massive ones, dark as thunder clouds, descending as a merchant ship moors with a sound like the earth groaning. The crew chants something rhythmic, perhaps to keep time or to appease some minor sea deity. You listen, you feel yourself sway with it, but then a rat the size of a loaf scampers over your foot and the moment ends. You retreat, you escape, you survive the harbor, but just barely. And as you make your way uphill, one thing is certain, you'll never smell clean again. You climb the hill with leaden legs, trailing salt, fish scales, and the faint but definite smell of seagull tragedy. But ahead, just beyond the groaning carts and the dust, rises the one place you thought would offer you peace, the great library of Alexandria. It gleams in the early light, all white stone and quiet promise. Its columns stretch like fingers toward the sky, and its doors, etched with hieroglyphs and Greek aphorisms, open into one of the grandest intellectual playgrounds ever built. You whisper the word, library, to yourself like a prayer. You're wrong to expect calm. As soon as you cross the threshold, the air changes, not quieter, but denser. Scroll dust swirls in shafts of sunlight. The scent of ink, old blue, and ancient parchment floats in layers. 1,000 voices murmur at once in dozens of languages. And it hits you. This isn't a sanctuary. It's an arena. A steward approaches, robed in papyrus-dyed linen, eyebrows like question marks. Name, he asks. Bored, you give him one, any one. He doesn't care. He hands you a wax token stamped with a symbol you can't read, points vaguely to your left, and disappears into the stacks. You clutch the token like it's a lifeline and follow the nearest whisper. Rows and rows of scrolls stretch into shadows. You walk between shelves older than your country. Scribes sit hunched in niches, eyes wild, fingers smudged with soot and lamp oil. Some mutter as they write, others chant softly, a few don't move at all. You wonder if they've stopped breathing or just ascended to a higher plane of grammatical obsession. You reach a table, cautiously sit. There's no chair, just a stool shaped like a lion's paw. It's uncomfortable in a judgmental kind of way. You place your hands gently on the stone surface, trying to look like you belong. A scroll arrives, not handed to you. It simply appears, placed without comment by a boy with a nosebleed and no shoes. You thank him. He sneezes directly on the floor and vanishes. The scroll crackles in your grip. You begin to read. It's in Greek, you think, but then there's Coptic and a little Sanskrit, maybe Akkadian. You're not sure if the sentence is about astronomy or goat herding. Possibly both. Behind you, someone coughs with the weight of centuries. You turn. A bearded man in a robe stitched with constellations glares. You're holding it upside down. He says. You nod. Flip it. Try again. Minutes pass. Or hours. Time is hard to measure in a place where even the shadows don't agree with each other. You begin to notice that the scrolls aren't organized alphabetically, or even topically. One shelf holds herbal remedies, architectural sketches, and a poetic account of a battle between two rivers. Historians still debate whether the whole flood war was metaphor or metaphorical mass drowning. And speaking of debate, a full-on verbal brawl erupts near the eastern alcove. Three scholars, one Greek, one Egyptian, one clearly drunk, were arguing over the true shape of the earth. You think someone just called the other flat-minded. A fourth stands on a stool yelling about geometry and throws a lemon at no one in particular. The lemon bounces, rolls to your foot. You don't touch it. You move deeper into the stacks. A different scent now, beeswax and rosemary. A private reading chamber. You step in. It's cooler here, candlelit, peaceful, until you realize the scroll in front of you is sealed with a red wax mark shaped like an open eye. Beneath it, in Latin, "Do not read unless prepared to be remembered by name." You step back slowly. Another chamber is filled entirely with maps, unfathomably wrong maps. One shows the world as a perfect square. Another insists Britain is a sea monster. You overhear two scholars arguing whether Atlantis is just a metaphor for Athens or if it's actually beneath their feet. Right now, swimming, and then there's the legend of the cursed shelf. You find it near the northern wing, tucked behind a curtain of faded blue linen. There's no guard, just a sign. Restricted by order of the king's philosopher. A rope of sandal leather lies limp across the threshold. You step over it, of course you do. Inside, the scrolls are older, hungrier. One emits a humming noise. Another seems to rewrite itself when you blink. You reach for the least threatening one, a small roll tied with a thread made of horsehair. It unravels in your hand, and the words rearrange themselves as you read. The reader shall not be forgotten, nor forgiven. You drop it. It floats. A girl's voice whispers behind you. Now you've done it. You spin. She's gone. You leave. Quickly. No one stops you. No one looks at you. But as you pass back through the main hall, you're certain that at least two statues have changed their gaze. One smiles. The other weeps. Back at the entrance, the steward waits. He takes your wax token without speaking, looks at your face, tilts his head. The library has chosen to remember you, he says, and walks away. You don't like what that means. You exit into the sunlight, squinting, dazed, and a little bit scorched by truths you don't understand. The wind tugs at your sleeves. Somewhere behind you, a scroll opens itself, even though no one is there. You don't look back. You stumble out of the great library, your head spinning with ancient curses, disputed star charts, and whatever that humming scroll did to your inner ear. You need a break, something simple, like registering as a citizen. You heard Alexandria welcomed all kinds, Greeks, Egyptians, Jews, Romans, wandering madmen, and sea-tossed philosophers. Surely you'll fit right in. You head for the Strategian, the administrative building where bureaucracy roosts like a particularly smug bird. It's not as glamorous as the library, but it's enormous, carved from sandstone, and guarded by twin sphinxes with chipped noses and expressions of permanent disapproval. Inside, the atmosphere is thick with sweat and slow-moving air. You're greeted by a chorus of coughing, a baby screaming in demotic, and a man trying to bribe a clerk with figs. You get in line, at least. You think it's a line. It might just be a very specific form of loitering. After some time, and you've aged at least one emotional decade, you arrive at the counter. The clerk is bald, barefoot, and eating what might be a raw onion. He squints at you as if your presence offends his paperwork. Name, he grunts, quill poised. You give it. He frowns. Too short. Add a father's name, and a region, and profession, and mother's horoscope. You blink. I don't have all that. He stares. Then how'd I know you're real? The process spirals from there. You're given a clay shard to mark your place, then told to get a second clay shard from a man named Miro, who turns out to be a woman. She stamps it, but backwards, back at the desk. The clerk now claims your ears are too rounded to be Macedonian, and your sandals look suspiciously Roman but confused. You are asked to swear allegiance to 3 different gods and to answer a riddle about geometry. You fail. The clerk sighs. You'll need a sponsor. A sponsor. He gestures vaguely toward a courtyard. Someone who'll say you're not a liar or a criminal, a citizen, a landowner, or a poet with credentials. You go outside, where pigeons mock you from the colonnade. You ask around. Most people ignore you. One man agrees, then demands 6 obols. You pay. He pockets the coins and vanishes behind a tapestry advertising goat milk charms. You never see him again. You return to the desk, empty-handed. The clerk has changed shifts. The new one looks younger, angrier, and is juggling a kitten while writing. He tells you, flatly, that all citizenship claims must now include proof of surviving a flood or fire. You ask if a spiritual crisis counts. He does not laugh. At some point you're ushered into a side room for verification. It's filled with clay tablets, broken styluses, and a bust of some royal bureaucrat who looks like he hated joy. A scribe interviews you. Language is spoken. He asks, "Modern English," you say. "Never heard of it." He scratches out something. "Combat experience." You hesitate. "Verbal only." He raises an eyebrow. "Religion. Do podcasts count?" He sighs. "Magic affiliations." You look offended, but then remember the floating scroll. Unconfirmed. The scribe rolls his eyes and stamps your file with something that looks like a chicken footprint. "We'll be in touch." You are not reassured. You return to the main hall, where the queue has mutated into a kind of bureaucratic hydra every time someone moves forward. 2 more seem to appear. The air is thicker now. Someone is chanting in Hebrew beside a goat. A man weeps softly, holding a license to distribute olives. A child draws on the wall with what might be dried blood, or ketchup from the future. You don't ask. You try one last time. This time, the clerk is a woman. She's older, and smells like ink and lavender soap. She looks at your file, sighs deeply, and asks, "Are you sure you want this?" You don't answer right away. Alexandria has bruised your pride, stolen your wallet, rearranged your brain, and possibly cursed your family line. And yet, you want in, to belong, even slightly, to this chaotic miracle of human thought and divine nonsense. So you nod. Yes. She stamps the form. Temporary visitor status. 1 week. Avoid sacred livestock zones. And no scrolls after midnight. You stare. That's it. For now, she says. But the city remembers. You don't like how often you've heard that today. You leave the Strategian clutching a palm-sized clay token with your name etched into it, misspelled, of course, and a wax seal declaring you probationary. It's better than nothing, but as you step into the square, a vendor calls out, "Citizen, pay the tax." You frown. He shoves a tally stick at you. For breathing air in the East Wind District. 3 obols. You check your pouch. Empty. Of course. You run, and the sphinxes don't even blink. By the time you escape the tangle of taxation and declarations, the sun has fully risen, and it's angry, not politely glowing or golden, but blazing down with the intensity of 1,000 desert oaths. The stone streets radiate heat like coals beneath your feet. Your robes, once vaguely presentable, now stick to your body with the damp intimacy of betrayal. Alexandria at midday is a test. Lift strength, lift sweat glands, of whether your soul can remain intact when your skin feels like it's being slow roasted. You seek shade. There is none. Alexandria was built to impress the gods, not to protect the mortals. Columns offer brief slivers of relief, but they shift and vanish like tricks of mirage. The white stone walls reflect the light back at you. Doubling the assault, you consider removing your robe, but a passing priest scowls at your indecency before you even move. Your skin is already pinking. You may not survive this afternoon. You try to duck into what looks like a shrine, cool, quiet, carved with lotus motifs, but the moment you step in, a barefoot woman in gold-painted linen gasps and clutches her chest. Defiler, she hisses. A young priest appears, his eyes wide with theatrical horror. She has entered during menstruation, or worse, ignorance. You're pushed back out before you can explain, handed a chunk of incense and pulled to atone with your left elbow pointed toward the sun. You do this, nothing happens, except you smell faintly of frankincense and humiliation. You try another street. It's blocked by a religious procession. At least, you think it's religious. There's a donkey wearing a mask, a man juggling pomegranates, and a small boy singing a hymn in syllables that don't seem to belong to any known language. People cheer, then throw flowers, then throw fish. A woman tells you this is a festival to honor Serapis, god of many things and at least one confusing head. You clap politely. You are then told clapping is a sign of disrespect during the middle cycle of the procession. A guard glares at you. You slink away. Someone bumps into you. A woman in elaborate robes holding a statue wrapped in linen. She mutters a prayer, then stops mid-sentence. She stares at you. You're cursed, she says, with the certainty of someone commenting on the weather. You shake your head. No, she interrupts. You stepped over a sacred pigeon line. I saw you. You don't know what that means. You also don't ask. You duck into a shaded market stall, hoping to buy something, anything, to give yourself a reason to exist here. The vendor offers amulets. You ask if any protect against public embarrassment. He smiles. Yes, this one is crocodile teeth dipped in basil oil. You nod. How much? 7 bowls. You show your empty pouch. Then you'll die thirsty and mocked. He says it so gently. You almost thank him. You stumble into another square. There, sun worshippers are lying on the ground, arms outstretched, chanting in Greek. A man is balancing a jar of wine on his stomach while reciting the Iliad backwards. You pause to listen. Wrong meter. A passing scholar mutters. The man sobs. The jar falls, shatters. You move on. Eventually, the heat grows so intense you stop thinking in full sentences. You pass a camel with coal-lined eyes, a goat wearing bells, a mural of Isis that seems to watch you, a child selling shadows from under a blanket. Yes, just selling shade, only 3 breaths per obol. He shouts. You nearly buy one. Then you see water, a fountain, marble, serene. shimmering like salvation. You rush toward it. A sign beside it reads, "Only for the initiated." You don't know what that means. You drink anyway. It tastes wrong, like boiled lettuce and forgotten dreams. Within seconds, your stomach makes a sound that could wake the dead. You stagger away, clutching your belly, bumping into a donkey. The donkey brays loudly. A group of scribes look up from their lunch. One raises an eyebrow, cursed and loud. He whispers. You sit in the shade of a sycamore. You collapse in graceless silence. You're overheated, dehydrated, and now possibly on a first-name basis with intestinal regret. Somewhere nearby, a gong rings. You flinch. A street performer is playing a wind instrument you've never seen before. It sounds like a cat being politely strangled, but somehow it soothes you. You close your eyes, and when you open them, a child has drawn on your arm. In coal, it says, "The gods are watching." You try to wipe it off. It smears, becomes a face. The face winks. You don't want to know. You get up, slowly. Alexandria is still blinding, still boiling, still relentless. But now, you understand it just a little more. It's not trying to kill you. Not exactly. It just wants to know how badly you want to stay. You walk forward. The sun watches. You sweat. The air shimmers. And the gods remain unimpressed. You're beginning to understand something critical about Alexandria. It's not just the gods or the heat or the bureaucracy that tests you. It's the people, the eyes, the way the streets themselves seem to evaluate you as you pass. This city doesn't just lie, it judges. It starts subtly, a glance here, a pause there. An old man stops chewing his lentils just long enough to frown in your direction as you pass his corner stool. You step around a pile of amphorae in the street, but apparently you do it wrong. A woman scoffs loudly behind you. No balance, she mutters, as if your feet have committed a crime. A few blocks away, you attempt to step around a sleeping dog, only to be chastised by a passing tutor who corrects your posture. You lift your heel too high, shows poor upbringing. You look back to say something, anything, but he's already launched into a lecture about proper sand-walking etiquette to an utterly disinterested donkey. You pass a group of schoolboys scribbling charcoal graffiti on a temple wall. You can't read the symbols, but you know mockery when you see it. One of them points at you, whispers to the others, and they all burst into snickering laughter. One throws a pomegranate seed. It hits your cloak. They cheer. You pull the hood tighter. Walk faster, but the city tightens around you like a belt. You turn down a new street and find yourself in the philosopher's quarter. There are benches, scrolls, debate circles, and disdain, so much disdain. A man with a waxed beard and a nose sharp enough to pierce bronze looks you up and down and declares, to no one in particular, "The foreigners have returned, again, with shoes made for running rather than thinking." Another chimes in, and still they can't find the agora without asking 3 times. You try to ignore it, but then someone stops you. He's tall, robed in fabric dyed the kind of blue that usually requires a dozen crushed snails. He holds a scroll in one hand and a fig in the other. He gestures to your face. Do you understand the concept of logos? You blink. No, he sighs. That explains your eyebrows. And just like that, he walks away. You turn a corner to escape. only to find yourself facing 3 cats sitting in perfect stillness in the middle of the road. They don't move, they don't blink. You try to step around them, but they adjust, just slightly, so that you're forced to choose. Step over or turn around. You step over. A widow watching from her doorway gasps. He disrespects Bastet. You mutter an apology to the cats, to the gods, to everyone, but it's too late. Judgment has been passed. You try to buy a honey cake to soothe your nerves. The baker eyes your robe, torn at the seam. She mutters, unseemly. She hands you a burnt one, charges you double. Even inanimate things join in. A bronze statue of Ptolemy seems to sneer at you as you pass. A mosaic of Alexander the Great has a chipped eye that somehow always seems to follow you. The street's narrow, not literally, but somehow your passage feels tighter, less welcome. At one point, you catch a reflection of yourself in a polished shield for sale. You barely recognize the person staring back, dusty, disheveled, postures slightly slumped from both sun and social erosion. You find a quiet bench, finally, and sit, but only for a moment, because the bench is sticky. With something, you leap up, too fast, your scrolls spill. You somehow have scrolls now. Where did they come from? A woman passing by says softly, clumsy hands, clumsy soul. You don't cry, you're too dehydrated to cry. Instead, you head toward the water, hoping for one breath of uncensored air. At the edge of the pier, you find an old man feeding fish with breadcrumbs. He looks at you, smiles gently. You look tired, he says. You nod. He leans closer. That's because you are. You sit beside him. He continues tossing crumbs. This city never truly accepts anyone, not even those born here. It just waits, watches, wonders how long you'll last. You look at him, and if you don't, he shrugs. Then you leave, or stay long enough to forget who you were before. The wind shifts. Somewhere in the distance, a gull screams. You realize your feet are blistered, your back aches, and your heart, your modern, well-meaning heart, is still trying to understand why a child with grapes just shouted, outsider, and vanished into a crowd. You sigh, then stand, and Alexandria, it continues watching, not unkindly, but never gently. You're thirsty, desperately, bone-deep thirsty, not the kind that craves refreshment, but the kind that whispers. If you don't find water soon, your tongue will turn to papyrus. And so, in a city of gods, philosophy, and bureaucrats who stamp with indifference, you do the most human thing imaginable. You look for a drink. A modest fountain carved from marble catches your eye. It's shaped like a lion with water dribbling lazily from its mouth. As if even the fountain can't be bothered to flow properly in this heat. You rush toward it like a pilgrim seeking salvation. You cup your hands, sip, mistake. The taste hits first, like hot lettuce soup left to ferment in a sunbeam. Then the smell, like someone rinsed their sandals in it. And then, the effect. Your stomach twists, not with elegance or poetic discomfort, but with the force of revolution. A bubbling, internal mutiny, like every single part of your digestive system received an urgent papyrus declaring, evacuate, now. You sit on a stone step, groaning softly. A passing boy, maybe 7, stops and stares at you. You drank from the lion, he asks, incredulous. You nod. eyes wide, trying not to move too suddenly. He shakes his head. That's not for drinking, that's for curses. Before you can ask, he's gone. You lean forward, dry heaving into your sleeve. From the nearby shade, a woman selling spices watches you with a mixture of concern and amusement. Too late now, she calls. Sobek already noticed. Sobek, the crocodile god, of course, because nothing in Alexandria comes without divine consequence. A man in priestly robes approaches, holding a bundle of mint and a look of weary recognition. You have displeased the waters. He intones. It happens. You nod weakly. He offers you the mint. Chew this, then pray, then don't do it again. You do. It's bitter, but it helps. Slightly. Still, the rumors start immediately, as you stagger through the streets looking for a place to sit that isn't on fire. Haunted, or occupied by judgmental cats. Whispers follow you. The drinker, the cursed tongue, the one who angered Sobek with their ignorance. You try to defend yourself. I was thirsty. A woman with gold-threaded braids gasps. Thirst, the very emotion that offends the underworld. You give up. You duck into a shaded apothecary, hoping for help. Inside, it smells of rosemary and regret. The healer, an older man with more wrinkles than scrolls, eyes you, sniffs once, and says, "Fountain." You nod. He grunts, disappears behind a curtain, and returns with a small ceramic jar. "Charcoal paste," he says. "Rub on your navel. It won't help much, but it will make the gods think you've learned something." You hesitate. He shrugs, or die confused. Your choice. You pay him with a copper ring you forgot you were wearing. He accepts it like it's an obol for Karen. Outside, the world spins slightly, whether from dehydration, heat stroke, or divine prank is unclear. You spot a group of scholars under a sycamore tree, discussing whether digestion is a spiritual process or just the body's way of processing divine knowledge. One notices you and calls out, "What say you, stranger? Does the gut mirror the soul?" You clutch your stomach. I say mine is currently in rebellion. They nod solemnly. One even claps. You shuffle on. You pass a woman selling dates soaked in wine. She eyes you, leans in, and whispers, "The answer to poisoned water is fermented fruit." You buy one, chew, wait. It's delicious. You're still cursed, but now slightly drunk and marginally happier. You find a step in the shade and sit, knees drawn up. You sip the last of your date wine, wiping sweat from your brow with a sleeve stained in 7 different kinds of street juice. Across the plaza, a man is doing something to a goose that might be musical. No one seems alarmed. A dog licks your foot. You let it. You've given up on understanding this place. But in the distance, you hear bells, not alarm bells, music. Someone is playing a lyre. The tune is slow, spiraling. You rest your head back against the wall, feeling the rhythm slide through your ribs. You survived the cursed fountain. That alone feels like a victory. The wind picks up, just slightly, enough to cool your skin, to dry the sweat at your temples, to make the smell of fish, fire, and sulfur fade into something almost poetic. You take a breath. It tastes, finally, like Alexandria. You awake to the sound of chanting and bells, not soft ones, but loud, plaining things that seem to vibrate through your teeth. For a moment, you forget where you are. Then Then the smell of goat tallow and sacred ash brings everything back. You're on the steps outside the Serapeum, once a grand temple dedicated to Serapis, the city's divine mashup of Greek and Egyptian gods. It looms before you like a fortress of shadows and incense. You didn't mean to end up here, but you also didn't mean to drink from the cursed lion fountain, or get judged by a cat tribunal, or offend at least 3 minor deities before lunch. So you climb. The stairs are smooth, worn down by centuries of hopeful seekers, desperate philosophers, and ambitious liars. At the top, the air grows cooler, not because of shade, but because something ancient clings to the stones here, not in a malevolent way, just expectant. 2 robed attendants eye you as you pass through the threshold. One is holding a brass censer that smokes like it's on fire inside. The other wears a collar of lapis beads and hums under his breath. Neither speaks to you. Inside the Serapeum, the world softens. Light filters through skylights shaped like stars. Statues of Serapis stare down with eyes of onyx and ivory. There is music somewhere, drums. Maybe, but distant, like it's being played underwater. You walk slowly. The walls are covered in inscriptions from 6 languages. You can't read any of them, but they feel important. A priest steps out from a side corridor, holding a candle that doesn't flicker. He looks at you, then at your feet. You enter with sandals. He says, "You freeze." Before you can respond, he sighs, gestures with the candle, and whispers, "We'll let it pass. The gods are merciful today." You bow, too deeply. He notices, says nothing. You follow the scent of myrrh into a narrow hallway. It grows darker, quieter. Your footsteps sound like parchment tearing. You pass alcoves where offerings lie, some fresh, some ancient, bread turned to dust, coins green with time. One offering looks like a preserved rat, dressed in ceremonial linen. You try not to look twice. Eventually, you reach a chamber, round, echoing, with a pit in the center surrounded by low flames. A voice hums from somewhere unseen. You step closer to the edge. Peering in, there is water at the bottom. Still, black, reflecting nothing. Someone speaks. "Do you know why you've come?" You spin around. A man stands in the shadows. Robes like smoke, skin the color of burnt sandalwood. He doesn't blink. You don't answer. He steps into the light. In his hand, a small jar. "You have touched something cursed." He says, "Your aura is soft around the edges." You're not sure what that means, but it sounds accurate. "I can help you," he continues, "but only if you look." He gestures to the water. You glance down. The surface ripples. Shapes emerge. A fish, a scroll, a cat, your own face, then not your face. Then darkness. You stumble back. The man nods. It's not meant to comfort you. It's meant to reflect. He opens the jar. A fine powder, silver and blue, catches the firelight. "Sandal ash," he explains, "burned from the feet of pilgrims, mixed with memory, breathed by the gods." You try to ask a question, but he's already begun. He pours the ash into the fire. It flares not orange, but pale violet, and the humming stops. Silence reigns. Then laughter, not cruel, not mocking, but old, deep. You feel it in your spine. The man smiles. "You've been marked," he says, "but not for punishment, for attention." You frown. Whose attention? His smile fades. "That is the part we never know. He hands you a token, smooth, dark, and cold. It bears no symbol, but feels heavy with meaning. Keep it, he says, when you dream of lions. Listen, you don't understand, but you nod. You step backward, out of the chamber. The walls seem taller, the air thicker. You retrace your steps, past the red mummy, past the silent offerings, past the unblinking statues. At the entrance, the priest with the candle is still there. He watches you leave. Not many come back from that wane. He says, you swallow. Did I pass something? He shrugs. You returned. That's more than most. Outside, the sun is lower, the sky flushed with late afternoon gold. Alexandria is quieter now, if only slightly, as if the city is catching its breath. You look down at the token in your hand. It's warm now. You pocket it, and keep walking. You drift away from the serapeum, your thoughts fogged with ashen visions. Your hands still tingling from the token you didn't ask for. The city greets your return not with trumpets, but with a smog of smoke, shouting, and something distinctly sulfuric. You follow the haze and stumble straight into the world of Alexandria's greatest minds. Unfortunately, they're currently trying to light something on fire. Welcome to the quarter of tinkerers, inventors, and what can only be described as ancient mad scientists. There is no sign marking this district, no grand archway or sacred threshold. The air does all the announcing, thick with steam, reeking of burned olive oil and copper filings. You cough twice before realizing your nostrils are now coated in soot. You approach what seems to be a workshop, except the workshop is exploding. A loud pop echoes across the plaza, followed by a high-pitched scream and a plume of smoke in the shape of what might have once been a chicken. A man covered in what looks like soot and bird feathers stumbles out. Laughing hysterically, too much vinegar, he shouts, and vanishes around the corner. You step carefully around a pile of gears, scroll fragments, and something that's still glowing. A young woman with brass rings around her arms beckons you into a shaded corner. Do you know about Numa? She asks. Before you can answer, she's already launched into a dizzying explanation about pressure, steam, and how the gods were probably just engineers with better tools. She unveils what appears to be a teapot attached to a spinning disc. It turns, she says proudly, using only steam and goat dung. You step back. She nods. Heron of Alexandria built something like it. My uncle thinks it's sorcery. I think it's breakfast. From the alley beside her workshop, a shrill whistle begins, then a pop, then a whoosh. You glance up just in time to see a wooden chariot, yes, a full chariot, hurtling down a ramp. It skids, wobbles, and crashes into a clay wall, sending broken pots and startled cats flying. A round of applause erupts from a group of toga-clad spectators. Better than last week, someone cheers. You wander deeper into the district. Each doorway holds a different madness. One shop brags of air-powered torches, another of automatic wine pours that mostly seem to spray. A boy passes by with an armful of wires, blinking furiously. Don't touch them, he warns. They remember pain. You don't ask. You come across a small amphitheater carved into the stone. Inside, a robed man with wild eyes and charcoal-streaked cheeks is delivering a lecture about floating metal and invisible fire. The audience nods. some furiously scribbling notes on wax tablets. A few just blink slowly, possibly asleep or hypnotized. You settle into the back, hoping for a rest. The man slams a clay jar on the table and shouts. The power of displacement. The jar explodes. Bits of liquid fly everywhere. A scribe to your left is hit in the face and mutters, "Not again." The lecturer grins. "This is why we wear linen." No one is wearing linen. You leave, not because you want to, but because your sleeve just caught fire and no one offered help. Only commentary. You step into the open air again, only to find yourself enveloped in a cloud of buzzing. Someone has invented a kind of air harp using stretched fish skin and trapped bees. The bees are not happy. Neither are you. You duck under a silk awning, coughing, and land beside a metal basin filled with bright green liquid. It's for memory. The vendor says, "Drink it, and you'll recall the name of every goat you've ever met." You decline. "Coward," he whispers. Just when you think you've had enough, a familiar figure emerges from a doorway, the same priest from the Serapeum. But now he's wearing goggles, and holding a scroll that smells like cinnamon and lightning. He sees you, smiles faintly. "Even the gods experiment," he says, tapping the scroll, "but their failures tend to be volcanic." Then he's gone. You wander to the edge of the district, ears ringing from someone testing a whistle-powered ceiling fan, which immediately detaches and sails into a fruit cart. Apples everywhere. A goat cheers, or maybe bleats. You can't tell anymore. As you limp away, clothes singed, heart pounding, you realize something strange. Despite the chaos, the explosions, the faint risk of combustion, this district has given you something you didn't know you needed. Awe, not the sacred, temple kind, but the wild, crackling, human kind, the kind that makes you believe that even in the oldest of cities, someone is always trying to create tomorrow. You smile, and immediately regret it as a nearby automaton sneezes fire. You don't even remember how you stubbed your toe. It might have been a rock, a step, a philosophical text dropped by a careless scholar. All you know is that one moment you're walking, and the next, you're yelping, hopping in place, and drawing the gaze of half a dozen Alexandrians who clearly believe physical injury is an unforgivable personal failing. Your toe throbs. You try to brush it off. It's nothing. You mutter to no one in particular, hobbling dramatically past a pottery vendor, but the pain insists. It pulses like a drumbeat, reminding you that in this city, even minor inconveniences have the potential to become major story arcs. So, against your better judgment, you look for help. You're pointed to a narrow building tucked behind a spice merchant and what appears to be a goat rental service. The sign above the door reads something in Greek that loosely translates to healing arts and other mysteries. Comforting. Inside, the light dims. The air smells of vinegar, burnt hair, and what you dearly hope is antiseptic. A woman in a blood-streaked apron greets you without turning around. She's sharpening a blade. "You're early," she says, "or very lucky." You explain your situation, the toe, the pain, the general desire to keep all your limbs attached. She nods once, then yells, "Barber, another toe." Before you can object, a man emerges from the back, wiping his hands on a towel that might have once been white. He's smiling, too widely. "I'm not sure I need surgery," you say quickly. He chuckles. Of course not. We call it adjustment, toe cleansing, alignment of the lower soul. You try to back away. The woman blocks the door. Just a look, the barber says. You sit. There are no real chairs, just a wooden plank, slightly slanted. You place your foot in a bowl aligned with sand. He lifts your toe gently. Prods. He squints. Could be bruised or possessed. Difficult to say. You offer a nervous laugh. No one else does. The woman hands him a tool that looks like a fishhook mated with a corkscrew. Wait, you say. What's that for? Extraction. He replies cheerfully. You jerk your foot back. Extraction of what? Emotion. Possibly bone. Depends on how deep the damage runs. You stand. I think I'll just limp. Thank you. But he's already reaching for a jar of salve. At least take the balm. Crushed mint, goat fat, and powdered marble. Good for toe, bad for memory. Apply at dawn. You take the jar. It's warm, slightly vibrating. You back out of the clinic with a muttered thanks and a renewed determination to let nature heal you. Slowly and without knives. Outside, you pass a man bleeding from the ear. He smiles at you. Tooth extraction, he says proudly. With sawn, you keep walking, but the city is not done. Moments later, your foot finds a puddle. You slip, you land badly. Your elbow connects with the corner of a low wall, and your pride takes the rest of the impact. A group of women nearby look over, shake their heads in unison, and one whispers, he doesn't respect gravity. You hobble into the nearest open doorway. Inside, silence, cool stone, and a man who looks more accountant than healer, hunched over a shelf of small jars. Problem? He asks without looking up. You show him your toe. He glances once, nods. Sit. You do. He binds your toe with thin reeds and something that smells like honey and despair. It'll sting, he says. It does. He tapes a small seashell to your sandal. Protection, he says. You pause. Protection from barbers. You thank him. He doesn't respond, just scribbles something on a clay chip and waves you off. You step outside, toe wrapped like a sacred relic, shell clicking with every step. You feel slightly ridiculous, slightly safer, but the pain has dulled, and that counts for something. You try to buy a drink to celebrate your semi-recovery. The vendor takes one look at your foot and says, "Ah, the walking wounded, extra charge." You sigh, pay it. You sit on a ledge, sipping something cold and vaguely citrus-flavored, watching the city pass you by. Across the street, a young boy limps dramatically. His friends cheer. You smile, because in Alexandria, even a stubbed toe is an epic, a journey, a lesson in pain, pride, and people with fish hooks. You flex your foot. The pain's still there, but so is the story. You're hungry now, not the casual, afternoon snack kind of hungry, but the deep, desperate kind. The kind that makes your brain whisper maybe pigeons aren't so bad. You limp toward the Agora, Alexandria's central market, expecting chaos. What you find is far beyond chaos. It's a miracle of madness. Stalls overflow like they're rebelling against order itself. Clay jars filled with olives, pickled garlic, honeyed dates, rose syrup jellies, and something that might be fish lungs bask under the sun like proud animals at a festival. But you don't dare touch anything, not after what happened with the fountain, or the toe, or the scroll that threatened your lineage. A woman shouts, bread, fresh from the oven, touched by the wind of Isis herself. You approach. She eyes you suspiciously. Where's your hand token? My what? The proof you washed, she says, pointing to a group of people lining up to dunk their wrists into a clay urn labeled with a symbol that looks like a frowning goat. You hesitate. She crosses her arms. You go. You dunk. The water is warm and vaguely minty. The urn growls. No, wait, that was probably your stomach. Back at the stall, the woman breaks off a loaf of dark, crusty bread and hands it to you with the same gravity as a funeral offering. You bite in. It's delicious, dense, nutty, with a whisper of date syrup. She squints. You chew like someone from the Northern District. You don't know what that means. You walk away quickly. At the next stall, a man whispers, "You look like someone in need of crocodile teeth." You stop. He opens a palm. Inside, 6 small, jagged ivory beds. For luck, for protection, for sleep. You raise an eyebrow. Sleep. He leans closer. The city never sleeps. You must sleep for it. You pass. He hisses behind you. The teeth rattle in his hand. Next, spices. Rows and rows of colors so vibrant they seem alive. Saffron, cumin, crushed roses, powdered beetles, dried lemon rind, purple salt. You reach out, just to smell. A slap hits your hand. No sniffing without an offer. The vendor snaps. You offer your best confused smile. He sighs, hands you a tiny pouch. Take this, keeps curses at bay. You nod, thank him, and realize too late it smells like mothballs and funeral smoke. Across the way, a group of Roman merchants argue over the price of sesame oil while a group of Alexandrian youths bet on how long it will take the argument to become physical. A donkey wanders through the market, wearing a wreath of laurel. A mime follows it, imitating its every step. No one acknowledges either of them. You try to buy figs. The vendor grabs one, bites it, hands you the rest. Now we are family, she says. You don't argue. You just eat. And then, you see it. The potion stall, covered in velvet cloth, nestled in shadows between 2 sandal makers. The table holds glass bottles of every shape, curved, sharp, spiral. The colors glow, violet, emerald, deep gold, impossible blue. A woman sits behind the table. Her eyes, sharp, her smile, slanted. She says, "You have the look of someone desperate to forget the last 6 hours." You pause. She gestures to a tiny vial. Love potion, works on fish, goats, and some humans. You nod toward another, and that, she picks up a pink bottle. Courage, or indigestion. My labeling system is intuitive. You stare. You shouldn't. You won't. You do. She slides a silver vial toward you. This one, she says, is clarity. You pick it up. Smells like honey and storm clouds. She leans in, or so they say. You don't drink it, but you pocket it, just in case. You walk away, senses overwhelmed, arms full of mismatched purchases, a damp loaf of bread, a cursed charm you didn't ask for, half a fig, and a packet of something that hums when touched. You've forgotten what you actually came here for. You sit on the edge of a fountain, not the lion one, and watch a boy throw grapes at pigeons while a philosopher recites lines from Euripides in the style of a fishmonger. You bite your bread. A pigeon lands next to you. You offer it a crumb. It tilts its head, considers, declines. Even the pigeons are judgmental. You lean back, finally full, if not exactly satisfied. The market continues to swirl. Music, voices, flashing copper pots, spice in the air, and you're starting to feel like you belong, if only as a walking cautionary tale. You've survived the market, barely, but Alexandria is not done with you, because just as you begin to retreat into the relative safety of a side alley, a roar echoes through the city, the kind of noise that pulls birds from roofs and makes children stop mid-sentence. It's the lighthouse, the famed pharos of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders, the god light, the eternal flame in the harbor sky, is making sounds it absolutely should not be making. You look toward the harbor. The tower stands, proud as ever, but something is different. The air around it ripples. A streak of smoke curls upward, not the usual soft beacon flame smoke, but a full-bodied spiral, black and urgent. You run, or hobble, rather, toes still half-wrapped, sandals loose, dignity fraying. At the harbor edge, people have gathered in clusters. Some pray, some selfish to those praying. Others point and whisper, passing scrolls and speculations like snacks. You overhear. It's a signal. The Persians are coming. No, it's divine judgment for that play last week. I heard a boy lit incense too close to the mirrors. The gods do not like redundancy. You reach the front just in time to witness a plume of flame shoot from the top of the lighthouse. Brief, brilliant, and absolutely unplanned. The merchant faints. A cat flees. A philosopher claps and says, "At last, a metaphor made real." City guards push through the crowd. You step aside, but not before one of them looks you up and down and mutters. It's always the outsiders. You back away. Someone bumps into you. A young woman with scrolls strapped across her chest like armor. They're saying it was a mirror misalignment. She breathes. The sun hit it too fast. Set the roof ablaze. Is it dangerous? You ask. She shrugs. Only if it falls, or blinds someone, or ignites the harbor, or upsets the moon gods. You know, the usual. Behind her, a small group is now chanting, not urgently, more like a musical protest. You catch the lyrics. The flames are not real. The fear is the fire. Catchy. You take a few steps backward, hoping to blend into the murmuring crowd. That's when you hear it. Witchcraft. The word slices the air. Heads turn. A man points, not toward the lighthouse, but at someone nearby. At you. You blink. Me. He nods. I saw it. Your bracelet. It reflected sunlight. You look down. The token from the serapeum. Smooth. Still warm. Still nameless. And, yes, slightly reflective. Someone else chimes in. He was by the fountain when it cursed the pigeons. You try to deny it, but the crowd is now a living thing, and it has decided you are either a sorcerer, a fire god emissary, or just unlucky enough to blame. You run. Again, you dart through the fish stalls, past the indigo boat now listing to one side, past the goat who seems to recognize you. Voices follow, footsteps, maybe a thrown fig. You duck into a side passage between 2 shrines. The walls are tight, the air smells like myrrh and panic. You emerge into a courtyard filled with ceramic pots. You hide, you wait, your breath catches on every heartbeat. Minutes pass, then laughter. Not cruel, not angry, just amused. A man with blue tattoos across his face sits nearby, smoking something fragrant. He looks at you. They think you caused the fire. He says, grinning. You nod, defeated. Did you? You shake your head. Pity, he says, would have made a good story. You sit beside him, let your breath slow. The city hums beyond the walls, voices rising, falling, forgetting. Already, someone is selling authentic ash from the fire of the gods. 3 old bowls a pinch. You hold the token in your palm. It no longer burns. It just rests, still, heavy. The man offers you a puff from his pipe. Smoke calms the nerves, or inflames them, depends on your mood. You decline. He nods, wise. The lighthouse burns today. Tomorrow, the statues might bleed. This city loves spectacle. You smile, barely, and somewhere, far off, the bells ring, not in warning now, but in celebration. The fire has gone out. The threat has passed, but the story has only just begun. You step out of hiding, shake off the dust. The sun is setting now, casting the lighthouse in gold, its scars hidden by the glow. And you walk slowly, silently, not in shame, but in survival. By now, you've realized that Alexandria never truly gives you what you're looking for, but it always gives you something. So when someone whispers that the evening games are beginning in the bloodless arena, your curiosity kicks in before your sense of self-preservation can catch up. The arena is less coliseum, more poetic chaos, built into a circular amphitheater lined with limestone benches. It sits tucked between a musician's school and a bathhouse that may or may not double as a gambling den. You enter cautiously, trailing behind a crowd of chanting teenagers and elderly men holding peeled figs. A trumpeter sounds a note so off-key it loops back around and becomes philosophical. The crowd cheers. You sit. The seat is warm, too warm. The man beside you turns and grins. First time, you nod. Don't worry, he says. Only 3 fatalities last week. But they weren't from the games. Just fell asleep too hard. You try to respond, but he's already cheering. The arena is coming alive. The announcer steps forward, resplendent in robes that glitter like overcooked lentils. He raises his arms and booms. Let the contest begin. You brace yourself for lions, or spears, or something involving fire. Instead, 2 men walk into the arena, one in flowing purple, the other in stark white. They bow to each other, then begin reciting poems. Yes, poems, furious, rhythmic, biting verses hurled like weapons. The crowd gasps. One line apparently insults a mother's ankle. The other returns fire with a pun so cruel the crowd winces audibly. The man in purple stumbles. The crowd hisses. Someone throws a fig. The announcer raises a scroll and shouts, "Point to the pale warrior." You blink. Did he just win that round? The man next to you nods. Cruelest metaphor wins. Always. A new round begins. This time, it's mimes. Not the kind you're used to. These ones are dangerous. 2 mimes enter, perfectly mirrored. They mimic each other's steps with surgical precision, then begin to copy the audience. One picks out a merchant in the front row, mimics his balding head and slow chewing. The crowd roars. The merchant laughs until the mime reenacts his recent trip to the bathhouse with disturbingly accurate gestures. You try to sink lower into your seat. Too late. One of the mimes sees you, locks eyes, and begins. First, they stumble, then clutch their foot, then limp dramatically, flailing and gasping. They mimic sipping from a bowl, then clutch their stomach and collapse. The crowd is howling. They're reenacting your entire day. You want to disappear. The mime bows deeply in your direction. A woman near you claps your shoulder. You're famous now. Next up, gladiators. Finally, two men enter wearing decorative armor, more bronze showpiece than battle-ready. One carries a wooden sword, the other a large fish. They circle, then embrace, then begin a slow, choreographed duel involving twirls, insults in Latin, and a fish slap that sends scales flying into the third row. You are confused, so is the fish. At some point, a philosopher runs across the arena screaming, "The world is illusion," before being politely escorted out by a bored guard. The crowd applauds. The final act is called the mirror trial. Two performers stand before a polished bronze panel. Each must take turns revealing something they've learned that day. The first says, "When I drank from the lion fountain, I saw the underworld." The crowd murmurs approvingly. The second says, "My mother is a goddess who lives in my stomach and feeds on figs." The crowd cheers wildly. Judges debate. The second performer is declared the winner. A fig crown is placed on their head. They eat it immediately. You sit in stunned silence. The man beside you turns. "Good show," he says. "Not as violent as last week, but more honest." You nod slowly. He offers you a honeyed almond. You accept it like a peace offering from a civilization you no longer understand. As the crowd disperses, someone pats your back. You'll be a character next time. They love a recurring figure. You smile, weakly. Outside, night has fallen. The stars peek through, as if even the sky is curious what Alexandria will do next. You walk slowly through the cooling streets. The sounds of laughter, poetry, and possibly crying echoing behind you. You went looking for entertainment. You found yourself in a play with no script. And maybe, just maybe, you played your part perfectly. After the surreal theater of the arena, you crave simplicity, a soft place, still water, warmth without fire. And so, with your cloak trailing figs and faint embarrassment, you do what anyone in your state would do. You seek a bathhouse. You follow the scent of rose oil and eucalyptus down a narrow street, past shuttered pottery shops and a man selling single sandals, just the left one. Eventually, you find it, a domed building with soft torchlight flickering from inside. The doorway framed by two carved dolphins locked in an eternal chase. You step in. It's instantly warmer, but not oppressively so. The air is heavy with steam and quiet conversation. You're greeted not by a clerk or gatekeeper, but by a large painted sign. Enter with peace or leave with soap in your eye. You pay with your last obol. The attendant, a teenager with eyebrows too expressive for his job, points you toward the changing room. "Mixed today," he says casually. "Don't stare, don't splash, don't quote Pindar unless asked." You nod. You think you nod. You're not even sure who Pindar is anymore. You undress awkwardly in a room filled with strangers behaving as if they've known each other for years. You wrap yourself in a thin linen towel that feels both too short and too revealing. Someone sneezes. Someone else starts humming. You clutch your pouch with the potion you still haven't used, as if it can shield your modesty. You step into the main chamber. Steam billows like a living thing. The room glows amber with torchlight reflecting off tile mosaics, dolphins, waves, lotus blooms, pools shimmer, hot and cold, surrounded by reclining forms. There's laughter, there's arguing, there's an old man snoring peacefully on a marble slab. You choose a quiet pool and slip in. The heat wraps around you like a lullaby. Every ache in your body, your bruised pillow, your judgment-heavy shoulders, your temples still tingling from mime-based trauma, melts into the water. You close your eyes. For a moment, nothing matters, until it does. A splash beside you. A woman lowers herself into the pool with the kind of theatrical grace reserved for statues or high-ranking cult leaders. She eyes you. You look like you've had a day. You nod, slowly, warily. She smiles. What did you do? Offend a fish god? Misquote a poet? Enter a temple backward? You blink. All of that, possibly. She laughs, loudly. The sound bounces off the walls like friendly thunder. Around the pool, others begin to chime in. One man claims he once drank a love potion meant for a goat. A woman says she spent 3 days pretending to be a statue to avoid taxes. An older man sighs and admits he wrote an entire scroll in the wrong direction, only realizing it when it was read aloud at a royal banquet. You feel it, something loosening inside you. Shame and absurdity are Alexandria's true currency. And here, everyone is wealthy. Then the politics begin. A stout woman with wild hair and opinions enters the water and immediately declares, "Ptolemy tax on pepper is criminal." Criminal, another responds, but the warships won't fund themselves. Soon, you're in the middle of a floating debate about economics, culture, and whether or not pigeons should count as civic property. Someone asks for your opinion. You freeze. "I think I'm just here to soak." They nod, respectfully. Wisdom, more laughter. As you rinse off with perfumed water, a robe attendant offers you a towel too short for decency and too sheer for modesty. You thank him with quiet dignity and try not to look at your reflection in the polished copper mirror. It shows a stranger, wide-eyed, slightly steamed, glowing with heat and maybe, just maybe, joy. You sit in the drying room, sipping something herbal. Your limbs are soft, your brain is quiet. Outside, Alexandria still breathes, still judges, burns, and performs. But in here, you found a rare moment of sanctuary. Just before you leave, the opinionated woman catches your arm. "You've changed," she says. You pause. "Since I got here?" "No," she grins. "Since you sat in that pool." You smile. For real this time. You step out into the night air. Towel traded for your robe. Feet bare. Hard light. The street is quieter now. The torches flicker gently. A cat watches from a ledge and, for once, does not look disappointed in you. And for the first time in what feels like 1,000 years, you feel clean. The sky above Alexandria is a deep violet now, stitched with the first stars. And for the first time today, the city seems to exhale. Not in silence. Alexandria doesn't do silence, but in a slower rhythm. The shells have softened to songs. The dust has settled into golden shimmer. The markets have closed. The torches are lit, and the people, oh, the endlessly dramatic people, have turned their faces homeward. And you walk alone. The streets stretch before you like veins of memory. Every step brings you past a place you survived. The Lion Fountain, now roped off with a sign that says, "Do not anger Sobek," in 3 languages. The arena, echoing with phantom applause and the vague smell of figs. The alley where the mime nearly ruined your soul. The bathhouse, warm vapor still rising like incense from its vents. You pass a woman selling roasted nuts who waves without speaking. A boy runs by with a mask shaped like a jackal. Laughing, a philosopher sleeps upright against a pillar, his scroll draped across his lap like a blanket. You climb a hill you didn't mean to climb, your body on autopilot now. Some ancient instinct pulling you forward. At the top, the harbor spreads out beneath you. The water glows inky and still. And there, against the horizon, the lighthouse of Pharos gleams, its fire once again steady. No longer roaring in protest, but pulsing like a heartbeat. The wind brushes your cheek, salted and gentle. Somewhere behind you, a lyre plays softly. You sit, not because you're tired, but because there's nothing left to resist. This city, you realize, was never meant to be understood in one day. Or even one lifetime. It doesn't unfold. It overwhelms. It mocks and blesses and breaks you with the same breath. But it also remembers you. In your pocket, the token from the serapeum is still warm. You take it out. It hums faintly. Not magical. Not cursed. Just aware. You look up. The stars over Alexandria don't twinkle. They burn. Bright, direct, unflinching. They watched Caesar, Cleopatra, Archimedes, and now you, just a visitor, just a breath, but for one day. You stood under their judgment and didn't vanish. Behind you, you hear footsteps. It's the priest again, the one from the serapeum. His robes are looser now, his expression less guarded. He stands beside you without greeting. You lasted, he says simply. You look at him, barely. He smiles. That's still lasting. You sit in silence together for a while, watching ships sway, listening to a city slowed to a hum. Below, the alleyways and courtyards still flicker with life. But it's softer now. Alexandria is winding down. You'll leave soon, the priest says. You nod. I think so. But the city will stay. You pause, and it will remember. He shrugs. Only what it chooses. Then he hands you something. A small scroll tied in red thread. For when you forget what this felt like, he says, not what happened, what it felt like. You take it. It's waveless, but heavy. He walks away. You stay. And as the final bells ring across the harbor, as stars bloom in the dark like silent fireflies, you lie back on the stone, close your eyes, and finally, let go. Your muscles release. Your breathing slows. The air is warm. Still, you are no longer a visitor, a fool, or a spectacle. You are simply here, and Alexandria, wild and impossible and unbothered by your comprehension, drifts you gently towards sleep. You've walked barefoot through the mind of an ancient world and lived to tell the tale, just barely. Alexandria was never going to be easy on you, not with its boiling sun, its labyrinthine markets, its philosophers who judge you for breathing wrong, and its fountains that dispense divine punishment instead of water. You navigated cursed scrolls in the great library, bribed your way through a labyrinth of place-stamped bureaucracy, got heckled by mimes, haunted by bathhouse politicians, and almost operated on by a barber with a fishhook. But you survived, not gracefully, but honestly, and somewhere between the accidental rituals, the mechanical explosions powered by goat droppings, and the moments where your body gave up long before your pride, you found something deeper, a city that doesn't welcome or reject, it tests. You failed most of those tests, and still, you remain. You were scorned, blessed, judged, applauded, and slightly poisoned. You became a footnote in someone's poem, a mimicry in someone's mime, a fig splattered silhouette in someone's memory. And now, beneath the stars, with the lighthouse pulsing like a distant heartbeat and the sea whispering its stories below, you rest. The city isn't sleeping, but you can, finally, because for one impossible, ridiculous, unforgettable day, you didn't just visit ancient Alexandria. You survived it. You belonged to it, even if just for a single, extraordinary breath. End of script. Thank you for listening to the entire video. Now take a deep breath, relax your body, and start getting some good sleep.